Cessie Howell. In 1978, we were living in Northern Virginia, and my husband was asked to start the first trust department at the National Bank of Fredericksburg in 1978. So we left Northern Virginia and came to Stafford County because of the school system. Our two boys were young, and we wanted the best school system and the best elementary and the best middle and high school that we could find, and we found that Stafford County had the best school system. I was on the Stafford County George Washington's Foundation. The reason it was formed, the owners of the land, the Warrens, had an early 1920s home on there. That Mr. Warren and his family were the last really owners of that land, and they tried to commercialize it, but it was just a family, was small, and they loved it, but they wanted to sell it, and so the supervisors made it commercial, to sell it, not as a farm, but to have businesses on it. And so they kept, for the foundation, the historic part of the property. They divided it in half, and the other part, where this building is, was zoned commercial. So we, the foundation, were going to try to get it really going, open to the public, where we would open it up and have tours and talk about the surveyor's house that was there, and we were going to cover up what we thought was the historic land, the remnants of George Washington, what we thought was the ice house. And so we built a building that we would do tours, and it just seemed to be going, and we were all on board. We really were. Then the supervisors and Stafford County sold this part to Wal-Mart, and all of a sudden we're thinking, this is unbelievable, because the trucks would come right up to the historic part, circle around back by the river, and that's where everything would have been done, right by the river. And the Wal-Mart, as you know, would be a huge, but they kept saying they would have low lights, and they would build it looking very colonial, and just statements like that they would make like that. And I remember going home thinking, that just can't be, that just cannot be. And since it had already been zoned commercial, they bought it from the Warrens for $2.2 million. So everything was on go. And I couldn't stand it. I couldn't stand it. And so here we were at George Washington's birthday. It was around February in 1996. And I thought, well, you know, we've got to tell the world that this is going to be a Wal-Mart. We just had to tell the world. So I started with the local TV stations and CNN and I've forgotten what other stations. We just called them, and they all came. And I can remember standing on the property, the historic property, and the lawyer was on the other property, and Jane Pauley was interviewing me, and then she would go to this other property, I couldn't see him, and interview him. And my heart was just breaking for this property being zoned, because it was George Washington. It was where everything happened, I think, that really built the character in George Washington. His house burned down. His father died. He was taught by Reverend Marie, not just the rules of civility, but all his teaching was from Reverend Marie. So this man suffered and lost his father. They really lost a lot of their income. And I just knew that that story needed to be told, not with a Walmart right beside it. And so I was invited to go on CNN, and I can remember getting lost. And it was down by Union Station, and I was lost. I was late. I was running, and I was so nervous. And so that same lawyer was right beside me in the interview. And he was so, this is the way it's going to be. It's nothing but a gravel pit. There's no history in this part. We are going to break ground by April. It's unbelievable that they would even complain about it because there's nothing on that land. And we went on and on. But by that time, I had been perspiring and I was just getting snoozy, and I was just in that chair. And I don't know what happened to me. And so I didn't answer him. I didn't do anything. And finally, the interviewer said, "Mrs. Howell, do you have anything you would like to say?" And I thought, this is my moment that I've been waiting for on national TV. And so I started in on the greatness of George Washington, and all of this land needed to be saved. And I started in on just what a man, how he saved the country, everything. And I must have gone on a bit because they went, "Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, Mrs. Howell, thank you." And so they cut me off. And I realized at that moment that I may have ruined the one moment that I had on national TV to really talk about saving this land. And so he and I went back into the green room. And so I said, "You're not breaking ground in April." And he said, excuse me? And I said, "You're not breaking ground in April because you're going to have to roll over my body. My body will be right in front of the truck, and that's the only way you're going to break ground on that property." And he went, "Excuse me, ma'am, excuse me." And he walked away from me. And it was because I was so sad about not doing a good job that it just came out. All my emotion came out with this man in the green room, and I was so thankful that no one else heard. But I was determined that moment in time that I was going to do everything in my power to save Ferry Farm, and I was never going to quit. But I did. We had rallies. It was everything we would do. I was on Channel 9 News, and I did a little better. And I was on different newscasts. We wrote letters to the editor. And I wish I could tell you that my passion, which was so strong, saved Ferry Farm. But it didn't. What saved Ferry Farm was the Kenmore Association coming up with $2.2 million. They didn't have it, and one board member paid. We signed the note, and all Kenmore could do was pay the interest on the loan. That's all they could do, was pay the interest. And it was one board member, George Logan, that continually paid the interest on the loan. That is all we could do. But we bought, and Vernon Edenfield was really instrumental, and the Board of Regents of Kenmore were very instrumental in coming on board and saying, "Okay, we are committed. This is it. We have bought it, and we are committed to save Ferry Farm." So the mantle was passed to those regions that worked so hard and raised that money. And the way they raised the money was by bringing in the National Park Service. And the National Park Service helped with that half of, I don't know how much of the loan, but started paying off. And so they became partners with the National Park Service. And that's how Ferry Farm was saved. I was only in a beginning part that had the passion and brought it to the national awareness, but I didn't do any more than just that. And I'm so thankful that we have it today, that people like you and people like Dave and everyone, that you have done what needed to be done, and all the plans for the future now are going to come to fruition because this land was saved, and there's no Wal-Mart that had trucks and low lighting and parking and concrete. And so I'm just so thankful. And I wish I could take credit for it all, but it was all a process, and it was a wonderful process. And now you're the stewards of this property. You're doing the digging. You're doing the saving. You're doing the protecting. You're doing the reproducing of the house. I always say to Bill Garner, will we have a reproduction of George Washington's house? Because I really believe that this was not his wealthy time. It was a time where children and adults can look at this and say, this was a difficult time in his life, but this family persevered. This was when his father died. This was when his mother struggled on this farm. But they persevered. And these children out there, they can persevere. They have struggles. They have all kinds of struggles in their life. There are lots of families where they don't have a father, and a mother raises the children, and a single mother is raising the children. And I want to tell that story. So my comment to Bill Garner is, will it happen in my lifetime? Will that building be built in my lifetime? And he always says, yes, yes it will. And that's a great story to tell on George Washington from that age 6 to 16.